You're listening to Bob Harden, streaming live online at bobharden.com.
Thanks so much for joining us here on the show. It's brought to you in part by the good folks at Johnson's Air Conditioning, Naples' longest established air conditioning company, as well as Naples Illustrated, bringing you infinite luxury lifestyles. Visit the website, NaplesIllustrated.com. Coming up, we're going to be visiting with Bill Barnett, Naples City Councilman. Right now we have with us Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. He is the author of The Battle for the Soul of Islam, an American Muslim patriot's fight to save his faith. I've read it. It is absolutely fabulous. I highly recommend it. He's also the founder and president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us.
No, it's great to be with you, Bob. Thanks for having me back.
Well, always a pleasure, Doctor. And for our listeners that may not be familiar with the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, what's it all about?
Basically, Muslims who really take the global threat to security from radical Islam seriously and believe that our security program should not be a whack-a-mole program, but it's our role as Muslims to counter the ideas and reform the ideas that radicalize Muslims. And really our mission is to separate mosque and state. We've got a youth program called the Muslim Liberty Project, and we have the American Islamic Leadership Coalition, that are programs that bring together Muslims that share one thing, which is the defeat of Islamism or political Islam that dominates so many Muslim-majority societies.
Well, you know, we're right now, Lisa Monaco, President of Barack Obama's Assistant for Homeland Security, was talking about countering violent extremism and power in the community, never even mentioned the notion of Islamic jihad. In fact, won't even mention radical Islam. What are your thoughts about this administration's approach to the problem and the issues of terrorism here in the United States?
Bob, it's just amazing the cognitive dissonance involved in their approach to it. I mean, on the one hand, they rolled out this program. They've called it CVE, Countering Violent Extremism. None of us really know what that is. When they rolled it out in 2011, our coalition put out a white paper, a 10-page white paper, responding to it and saying they used the word ideology 20 times in their paper, in their presentation about CVE, and yet they never said what it is. How do you counter something you can't identify? Violent extremism could be anything from gang violence to crime to, anything. And yet, when they rolled this out last week, Monaco was flanked by the Muslim Public Affairs Council, by Sarah Pandit, who was the representative to Muslim communities under Hillary Clinton. She was talking about telling parents to watch for signs of terrorism and radicalization in kids that may go abroad. Go abroad where? She's talking about Dagestan, like the Boston bombers. She's talking about Saudi or Syria, and those are related to Muslim radicalization, but yet they won't use the term. I'm a physician in my day job, and if I saw my patients and didn't identify with them, need to cure obesity, identify the cancer, etc., they would laugh me out of my office. And this is yet the billions, the largest agency in our government now, can't seem to put together a program that identifies the threat. I mean, it's laughable, number one, but number two, it's sad, because what it ends up doing is it marginalizes the real reformers that want to identify that say, you know what, the solution's within the House of Islam, but our government needs to take sides in that house. Unfortunately, it brings the Brotherhood folks closer to the administration because they're the ones that are steeped in denial and obfuscation, and they don't want to identify the problem because that would take away the oxygen that keeps these movements alive in the West, and that's who's supporting this administration directly and advising them to create these nebulous, useless programs. And, we're more a threat now than ever before. We saw al-Qaeda in the peninsula last week putting videos out, and then the administration did one of its largest operations against al-Qaeda in the Arabic Peninsula just a few days ago. So the threat is greater than it's ever been because of this vacuum that Obama has left.
Yeah, how real is the threat for Islamic jihad here in the United States?
It could not be more real. On the on the 1-year anniversary of the Boston bombing, and we look at the numbers that have been arrested, that have tried to plot against this country, and it's now over 400. 90% of those have been of the Muslim community. This is not to say that all Muslims are terrorists. It's a small minority, but all the Islamist terrorists that have tried to attack us have been Muslim. So we have to face that reality, and we're the ones that can reform that. And the threat continues to grow. We see now, because of Syria, you have over 180,000 dead, 5 million displaced. You have a lost generation there that now is sending jihadists that are leaving there that are anti-West. Europe has a bigger problem now because of radical Islam, because of Syria, than it has had in many, many years. And we're seeing the same threat. We're looking at refugee camps in Kentucky and places all over the country, and we're unable to help a humanitarian crisis because of the jihadist threat. And unless we develop a strategy like we did in the Cold War, we are going to continue to find ourselves, hamstrung from really doing the humanitarian work that we need to, creating a strategy in the Middle East, and continuing to be at more threat than we've ever been, which is really where we are today.
Right, and in fact, in today's, I think I saw this on Fox News, al-Qaeda's senior leadership, Sanafi al-Nasser, has relocated to Syria and is living openly and publicly and courts his followers on Twitter. So what we're seeing is expansion of al-Qaeda, not diminishing impact.
Absolutely, and the old paradigm in the Middle East was always that these dictators thrive over maintaining some presence, not too much to where they take them over, but some presence of al-Qaeda, because it legitimizes their dictatorship. And we're seeing, if you look at the bombing systems in Syria, what Assad's doing, yes, al-Qaeda is trying to displace him, but he's bombing moderate neighborhoods. He's displacing the moderate civil society that is just destroying Syria, but yet where the al-Qaeda camps are being preserved, because that's what gives him legitimacy for a military dictatorship, and this revolution is continuing to unravel the entire region. And Obama's been missing. They even used possibly chemical weapons 2 weeks ago, was documented, and nobody said anything. And unfortunately, we continue to have this whack-a-mole program where we go from Syria to Iran, then to Ukraine, and there's just no strategy. He hasn't laid out his vision for the Middle East.
All right, whack-a-mole, I like that one. And this must be particularly painful because your roots are, your family is from Syria.
They are, and I talk about that at the beginning of my book, and how Syria flirted with democracy in late 50s, and there was an opportunity for that, but then the Ba'athists took over, and it has been one of the most ruthless countries of the world. It's like the North Korea of the Middle East. And we see what happens in a country that is unable to have the weapons to defend itself, and it just has one of the worst revolutions now. And really, they need some help, air support, and they need a foreign policy that enables a moderate third pathway. It's not a binary choice in Syria. There are third and fourth options that need to be helped to evolve.
Again, Doctor, before I let you go, I mean, we talk about this administration, but even in New York, political correctness seems to be reigning right now.
Oh, the NYPD program, which many have said has saved over 19 different attacks and arrests, was dismantled by de Blasio and company a few weeks ago. And, this is national security by PR. We can't, and they call it a surveillance program when in fact it was just simply smart police work, in which they were mapping and looking at various Muslim communities, and good police work looked at Italian communities when they were doing mob work in New York, and there should be no embarrassment. Judge Martini in February, in a lawsuit against the NYPD, defended the NYPD and said if there's anyone to blame about national security, it's not the NYPD, it's the AP for advertising this policy in a way that made it seem targeting of a religion, which it was not, as the federal judge said, and ultimately it was simply following terror conspiracies. But nobody wants to pay attention to that. The new far-left de Blasio administration just said, let's just dismantle this to appease the Islamist groups. And when on the ground it appears that really not much probably has changed, but they are dismantling a program of data keeping that was really a seminal program globally, that was really a product of the work of the NYPD from 2007 that talked about the homegrown threat that really now is just, we're back in the 90s. We're not even 2001. We're back in the 90s as far as the security there.
Again, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, the president, founder of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. A website, Doctor?
Our website is aifdemocracy.org. aisdemocracy.org.
And again, the battle for the soul of Islam, an American Muslim patriot's fight to save his faith. I encourage you to read Dr. Jasser's book. A pleasure to have you on the show, Doctor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Anytime, Bob. Thanks for all you do. Appreciate
My pleasure. Thank you. Okay, coming up. What a great man, by the way. He's just unbelievable. And taking the positions he takes, do you think he's not putting his life and his family in jeopardy? Believe me, the Muslim community, the Muslim Brotherhood, is not pleased about this at all. Okay, coming up, we're going to visit with Bill Barnett, Naples City Councilman. That and more right here on The Bob Harden Show on the Bob Harden Broadcast.